Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your fallen angel back with another video. Today, we are covering the concept of the triune brain and unveiling the evolution of human intelligence. So, before we get started, feel free to check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. Also like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right in. So, prior to this video, we dropped a video on the triune brain, explaining all three parts of the brain. We're also going to get a little more in depth today, but we're also going to make our way towards rational thought, will, power, as well as reasoning and emotional thought. And then we will encompass in a future video how these intertwines with society, how this is interwoven with capitalism, and how they use your desires against you. So let's just jump right into this slideshow now. The triune brain corresponds very well to the soul, described by Plato almost 2,500 years ago. The desiring part of the soul is the crocodile brain. As we said before, this counts for the 4 F's. Fulfillment as in for sexual pleasure, feasting, and fight or flight. That's the 4 F's. Desire for food, conquest, sex, and safety. The spirited part of the soul, the thymus, is the limbic system. We understand that this is the horse brain. This is the response for all the emotional responses and the emotional connectivity. Then the rational part, the soul, the neocortex, is the computer brain. The Platonic rational charioteer struggles to manage the 2 horses of desire and spirit, just as the rational computer brain struggles to control the emotional horse brain and the instinctual crocodile brain. So guys, you see, the neocortex supercomputer struggles to be in control because of our animalistic desires and because of our emotional state. Most people are operating on this horse brain or crocodile brain. Rarely few are at this neocortex level. Maybe psychopaths, maybe extreme geniuses, but even these geniuses are operating at a much more awe. They're operating at a level where people think that they are crazy. Because they are, and intrinsically because they are different. Most people are operating at this horse brain or crocodile brain for the most part. The reptilian brain is said to be rigid, obsessive, compulsive, ritualistic, and paranoid, and is prone to repetitive program behaviors with little evidence of learning from mistakes. It controls vital functions such as breathing and heartbeat, and remains active at all times, even in deep sleep. When this switches off, you're dead. It has been called a mechanical brain. So, the reptilian brain, also known as the reptile brain or the crocodile brain, this is our idea for survival. This is the survival brain. This is just reproduce, survive, and meet another day. This is all it is. So, if this ever was to stop, that just means you were dead. Because this is the part of the brain that ensures survival. Okay? So, and we have to understand that all parts of the brain are always awake, because the subconscious is always awake no matter what's going on in the cosmos. The subconscious stays awake. The limbic system, by adding feelings to instincts, can generate more nuanced, varied, and flexible behavior, leading to learning. The limbic system classifies everything as agreeable or disagreeable, and pursues a policy of avoiding pain and pursuing pleasure. It is therefore governed by the Freudian pleasure principle. So, the limbic system is essential because it understands external stimuli very well. It understands repetition very well. It wants to pleasure seek. So now that we passed the crocodile brain, we're at the horse brain. The crocodile brain is operating as, will I survive? Now this horse limbic system is operating as, does this feel good? This is what it's operating at. It's all about, does it feel good? Would it make me feel good? This is what it is, right? And this is the level that most women are operating at. They're operating at ego and feelings. This is the limbic system in full play for most women. It is if it feels good. This is why when they cry, it feels good. If a man that was to take Clomid right now, his estrogen would skyrocket, his estradiol would skyrocket. He would then learn that crying for no reason feels good. Now, what has to be understood is, the emotions feel good. This is why the limbic system is what it is. Emotions, regardless if it's a negative emotion, a positive emotion, it's a fury of emotions that just end up feeling good. That's what it does. It feels good to be in your emotions. The limbic system is the evaluating function, the seat of our value judgments, determining whether we feel positive or negative towards something, and focusing our attention accordingly. It has an enormous connectivity with the neocortex, the computer brain. So, while the neocortex is obviously the superego, the supercomputer, it will not be able to function fully humanistically without the limbic system. The limbic system is what gives us the ego. It's what gives us desire. It's what gives us love and hate. Without it, if we were only operating at a neocortex level, we would be superhuman because there would be no emotional state. But at the same time, without this emotional state, we wouldn't have ego, we wouldn't have desire to achieve our goals and to be better, right? So both of these are intertwined. This is why there's a connectivity between the neocortex and the limbic system. The limbic system typically subordinates thinking to feeling. It engages in rationalization of desires. People are driven by their desires, and the rational mind then tries to explain why, using some pseudo-explanation or other, a personal mythos, it doesn't like to admit that it's a puppet of desire. So guys, like we mentioned, many people are operating in this limbic system, this horse-like brain. They want to just operate off what feels good. They want most of their functioning, most of their rationale, most of the things they are doing is because it essentially makes them feel good physically or makes them feel good mentally. It's a way to just appease the ego. This is the best way to put it. It's a way to just appease the ego. They're not thinking in a neocortex level. They're not using the supercomputer brain to their full functionality. They want something that feels good. So being in your emotional state often feels good, right? So when we explain this, right, many people would not admit this, but the limbic system is a puppet of its emotions. You become a puppet of desire. You become a slave to the limbic system because you will not be able to escape this. Most people cannot escape the first and second brain, the crocodile and horse brain. They will remain dormant. The neocortex will remain dormant for most people, right, in society. The thinking, rational mind, the human mind, ought to be our pride and joy, yet it remains largely under the control of the two lower brains. This is a major force holding back human advancement. The limbic system of emotion, rather than any process of reason and logic, judges whether ideas are good or bad, using its own irrational and illogical criteria, therefore poses significant dangers to us. So, as we mentioned, the neocortex is the superego, it's the supercomputer that not only operates at a computer-like level, but it's most likely dormant for most people. Most people are only going to be operating at this lower levels, the first and second, the crocodile and horse brain. So what ends up happening is they will not be able to differentiate between logic and reason and emotion, right? Most of the time, emotion takes over for them. Most of the times, feasting, sexual pleasure, fight or flight is all they know. The amygdala is always in play for them. They do not know how to turn this amygdala off. And you may think, how can anyone turn this amygdala off? It's a natural thing in the brain. But the thing is, with the neocortex, you can do possibly anything in this cosmos once you learn how to put this supercomputer to your advantage, to put this supercomputer to work for you. Most people do not know how to operate past the first two brains, right? They cannot escape this. It's very, very difficult for them to escape this because all they know is this, the crocodile and horse brain. The Vulcan race in Star Trek would have no doubt have a massively reduced set of connections between the limbic system and the neocortex, making them much more logical than humans. One can imagine that a significant evolutionary step for humanity might be to become more like the Vulcans and have Mr. Spock's galore. So, there's a quote from Mr. Spock that says, "I'm half human, I'm half alien, but my intelligence is what conquers all." Mr. Spock understood that his intelligence overpowers the two other spheres. This is what the neocortex is using your rational thought, your discernment, and your massive amounts of brain power to not, this is not to say that you become dull or not willing to show emotion. This is just saying Logic and reasoning is the true wisdom. Wisdom starts at logic, okay? It does not end at logic. It starts with logic. So therefore, once you understand this, you can move at a much, much more faster rate. You can think at a much faster rate. You will be able to problem assess at a faster rate. You will be able to problem solve at a faster rate. This is the neocortex in its full entirety. In the neocortex reside the higher cognitive functions, which distinguish humans from animals. Professor MacLean describes the cortex as the mother of invention and father of abstract thought. Although all animals have a neocortex, it is small, thin, and underdeveloped in their case. A human without a functioning cortex is a vegetable. So, if we were to take out your frontal lobe right now, you would not be able to move. You would be a vegetable. You would just be there because you would not have any motor functions. You would not be able to move. The frontal lobe is responsible for your movement, your speech. When you drink, the cerebellum, the bridge that connects to the frontal lobe, this ends up being, it turns off. This bridge turns off. So then you lose speech. You're not be able to walk anymore. Your memory for the things that you normally do easily is starting to lose. This is why cops tell you to either walk backwards, say your alphabet backwards, to see if your frontal lobe is impaired. So when we understand how thick our neocortex is, we have to understand that we are very, very competent. We are very, very intelligent. We are very, very industrious in the brain. Most animals are operating off the crocodile and horse brain because they do not have this thick layer of the neocortex. They don't have this supercomputer because it's not necessary for them. They do not need it. They just need to survive and reproduce. That is all the animal needs. This is just the animalistic needs. In essence, we are still animals too, but as humans, we have a supercomputer. That's what sets us apart. This is why we are the apex of this country, of this land, of this world. We are the apex. We are intrinsically God-like. We're not God itself. We're not the macrocosm, but within this microcosm, we are God-like. We can think of the reptile brain as being responsible for all core tasks, above all self-preservation. This means that it is a seat of aggression. Since creatures have to fight to survive, behavior is programmed, automatic, and inflexible. The emotional brain increases the repertoire of behavior because it allows new programming to take place in accordance with emotional judgments. We will self-program ourselves to repeat behaviors we found enjoyable and to avoid any behaviors that made us feel uncomfortable. So guys, we often see people once they feel something they don't like, or they go through something they don't like, they often never do this again. This is a trauma-based ideology. This is fear-based ideology. This is the emotional state, the limbic state in full play. When people are scared or when they have a fear, they necessarily do not try to do it or try to overcome it because they're so intertwined with this horse brain that they won't even allow their neocortex to take over and manifest a new reality. They will just stay stagnant and allow this neocortex to remain dormant. So really, we could just see most people like this, nothing more than just animals. That's it. They are nothing more than just a horse and a crocodile brain. Nothing more, nothing less. Because they cannot use logic to their advantage. The rational brain, responsible for intellectual tasks, theoretically allows us to access an enormous range of new behaviors based on rational criteria. But reason did not disengage itself from emotions. People do not behave rationally and logically. So when we understand this is, the rational brain is responsible for intellectual tasks, yes, theoretically allows us to access an enormous range of new behaviors based on rational criteria. But reason did not disengage itself from emotions. So when we say that, we have to understand that, yes, we are learning a plethora of new things, a plethora of new ways, grooves within the brain for us to adapt, the external stimuli, etc. These things are necessary in the cosmos for us to survive and adapt to our external stimuli, whether this is you in a relationship, whether this is you in the workplace, whether this is you at a sporting event, whether this is you playing something. You learn the meta and then you adapt to the meta. But your brain is not disengaging itself from the emotions. The limbic brain is still always in play. You will have memories, you will have traumas, you will have joy for things, you will have hate for things. Things are always in duality as well. Rather, They rationally pursue emotional satisfaction, but that's a very far from behaving rationally. As Thomas Huxley said, what we call rational grounds for our beliefs are often extremely irrational attempts to justify our instincts. An alcoholic can rationally work out ways to get his hands on more alcohol, but alcoholism is a catastrophic disease that no one would rationally choose to inflict on themselves. So reason is put to counterproductive uses that, if properly analyzed, are irrational and driven by emotion and desire rather than logic. So logically, drinking that much alcohol will only induce more pain, because we live in such a self-gratification, instant gratification type of generation. People chase lust, people chase gluttony, people chase what is easy because this is the emotional limbic system in play. The neocortex is what's discerning this. The neocortex is what's going to tell you this is wrong. You should not be doing this. Even if you feel like it may feel right, you may feel like a little nerve tingling. It will not suffice in the end. At the end of the day, you will feel worse than that simple instant gratification that you might have felt. Because as a human, you do not be happy on what you receive. Sometimes the things you want, that anticipation feels much better than actually receiving it, right? Now think about women when they want a man, right? Or when a man wants a woman, they think about it. It's the anticipation of getting something. And when they finally get it, it's almost like, I don't really want this anymore. You know what I mean? Because that's intrinsically what's going on. So what we have to understand is the human brain, or any animal brain, operates off anticipation. It operates off anticipation. There was a study by one of the doctors named Robert. He explained it like this. When monkeys are pulling triggers for food, they are not necessarily happy that the food is coming. They're not necessarily waiting for the food. They're waiting on anticipation. Anticipation is what's spiking dopamine. It's spiking this levels of higher cortisol. It's spiking the amygdala to understand what's going on. The hippocampus is recording what's going on because it wants to pinpoint, okay, now I know it's coming out this time. Now I got you. Now I got you figured out. That is why this is counterproductive, because desire for many people is outweighing logic. And this is where you end up losing in the grand scheme of things, especially in a society like ours now. Yet it would be wrong to think that it might be invaluable, a quantum leap forward in progress, for the rational brain to detach itself from emotions. Without emotions, without values, a person engaged in reasoning would have no rational ends to aim for. After all, what would a purely rational brain aspire to do? If it had no feelings, no desires, no ego, no values, it would rationally do nothing, since there is nothing to rationally motivate to do anything. So, while we went on this tangent about how this is a detriment, the emotional side may be a detriment at times, it is also needed in order for there to be desire, in order for there to be a reason to use this rational brain, in order to use our neocortex to its full advantage. There should be a reason as to why we're doing this, whether this be desire, whether this be love, whether this be revenge, whatever the emotion may be at the current state of mind. What is it that's fueling us to do what we're doing? That's what it's trying to get at. Reason cannot admire itself because that would involve emotion. It cannot aim to be even more rational or aspire to solve all of the rational problems of the cosmos and become God, because again, it would have to be emotionally motivated to pursue such ends. A computer has no desire to be a better computer. It does not wish to prevent a user from switching it off. It does not set itself the task of solving the problem of life, the universe, and everything. It has no desire to be God. Why? Because it has no feelings, does not desire anything, and places no value on anything. None of these things are connected with reason and logic. Reason and logic are tools. They're not drivers. They're not self-propelling agents. That's why the concept of will is so important. That's why the fundamental substance of the universe is will to power. So, by Nietzsche, How does one become stronger? By deciding and holding firmly to the decision once it is made. Everything else follows of itself. So, this power of mind, the true power of mind, is when you stay stern on your decisions, not allowing your brain or your limbic brain to detour yourself from these type of movements in the cosmos. A system that seeks more power will not stop until it has no power left to acquire. It has become infinitely powerful. It has attained its omega point. We understand that the alpha is the beginning point. The omega is the end point. Then, in the order to once again experience the delicious feeling of power increasing, it has no option but to destroy itself and start again. The divine suicide. Will contains the motivating dynamic, self-propelling element that reason lacks. Reason can never be anything but a tool of the will. Reason cannot of itself achieve anything at all. There's no escape from emotion and desire. The central question is, what is the best balance of emotion, desire, and reason? Most people have got it hideously wrong. They are almost entirely lacking in rationality, while they are definitely in their crocodile brain about survival and reproduction, and they're definitely in their emotional state of mind with their ego and emotional capacities. Where's the reasoning and the rationality for most of their thoughts? Where's the reasoning and rationality for what they do? This is out the window for most people in this cosmos. Reason is the youngest and most fragile quality of the human mind. All non-human animals get by without any conscious reason. Reason is a non-essential luxury item, and the most people have chosen to do without it, and to remain locked in the childish world of instant gratification. So, this instant gratification is how capitalism or any market uses your desires against you. It uses your limbic system against you because it knows you will want this short-term pleasure in return for the removal of having to use your neocortex. Will this serve me in the long term? Will this item that has no intrinsic value, which will dissipate when I pass, does it actually mean anything in this cosmos? Does it have any value? But this is how you create people that are instantly gratified. You create materialists, and this is how you spark and fuel capitalism to be at its full regime. So guys, this was the Triune brain and unveiling the evolution of human intelligence. In the next videos, we will go over how rational thoughts and capitalism are intertwined and how they use your desires against you in much more depth. But guys, feel free to like and subscribe. Also leave a comment. Check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. This is your fallen angel, and I am out.